Praise be to Jesus Christ and welcome to Catholic Forum. I'm your host today. I'm Deacon Jim Thorndell. I'd like to welcome all those who are joining us on public TV and those who might be joining us on podcast. Today we have a very interesting conversation. We're here in the midst of Grand Rapids into a beautiful called ArtPrize, and we have thousands of artists who are participating in bringing the beauty of God into our Grand Rapids area. But we also have it in our what's called Cathedral Square. And tonight I'm welcoming some people who are very involved in art and in ArtPrize. And I'd like to welcome Elizabeth Hurley. That's all right.
That's all right.
And Father Tom Simons, who is over at Holy Trinity in Clyde Park. Comstock Park. So welcome. I'm glad you could be here with us tonight. You know, this is an interesting conversation because art is always in the eyes of the beholder, is it not?
Absolutely.
We all see things differently and how we perceive art and what we call beauty. But particularly when it comes down to ArtPrize this year, you are the curator now at the Cathedral Square, correct?
That's correct.
Give us a little background of how you got into that.
Well, I started in 2010 after I graduated from Aquinas College with a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. And I just started as an intern helping out the diocese. It was their second year participating with ArtPrize, but they wanted to have a larger show. The first year they had only had a few pieces outside and wanted to have a more full show, I guess you could say.
Okay. How many pieces are in there this year?
This year we have 38 pieces, inside and outside, and it's probably one of my favorite shows, I think.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yes.
That is wonderful. So how long have you been doing this?
This is my fourth year.
Your fourth year.
Yep, they keep inviting me back. So.
Okay. And we had this conversation. When it comes to selecting what goes into the cathedral, do you have full authority to choose that?
Yes, I'm the one to blame for all of our work being shown.
How many, would you look at all of them that are available?
Absolutely. I looked at every single entry that was submitted and reviewed every single one. Everything was considered as a potential candidate for our gallery.
And I would imagine with your eye and thinking of Cathedral Square, you're looking for something particular. Not that other things aren't beautiful, but there's probably something that really is aesthetically pleasing that would go into Cathedral Square?
Yeah, we certainly want pieces that have a nice, peaceful, contemplative element to it.
Okay.
Things that would invite the viewer to stay a little bit longer with each piece and really kind of meditate on it and just view it and enjoy it for a while rather than passing by, which is unfortunately an aspect of ArtPrize with the large quantities of work.
It is. I've been down there, and it is one of those sad elements that people will bypass a beautiful piece of art without really stopping to really think about the effort involved in it and what it's trying to portray.
Yeah.
Father, you're versed in art, I understand. And tell us about that, your background in understanding art.
Well, I've always had a personal love for art, particularly the Church's great history of art, involvement with art. I had the opportunity to study liturgical theology after doing graduate work, so postgraduate work at Notre Dame, and so I got a degree in liturgical theology. And my specialization kind of was in the area of art and architecture. Okay. So I've really enjoyed working in that field with our parishes, either building a new worship facility or a lot of times when they're exploring possibly adding artwork to devotional art or liturgical art, of helping consult with that. So,
so you have a keen eye for looking at that and really trying to have an understanding of what should be, what's proper in whether the church or whether it be even at Cathedral Square.
Yeah, and I mean, I like all kinds of art. So.
Well, we'll get into that more, but you know, the one thing I want to really help tonight is, first of all, when we're looking at this art, I want to get your perspective on what you see and why it is you chose one particular piece over the other, because I think that's important for our viewers to understand that everything that is created normally by the artist is really a work of God. And whether we see it or not, how we see it is really our perception of what the artist is trying to convey, correct?
Yeah, I think in many ways, absolutely.
Okay.
I like to think of art as, well, one of my professors would always say, it's not what the art is, it's what it's doing. And I also think that definitely when I started with Bishop Hurley in charge, he had a wonderful supportive, I don't want to say agenda, but certainly attitude towards art, that all art was spiritual, because the artist, as a human being with feelings and perspective and a very unique personality, is definitely trying to convey something, and it's up to us to try and identify what that is, how that influences us. So I definitely feel that.
What I'd like to do right now, Elizabeth, and Father, is I'd like to put some pieces of that art up on the screen and have you take a look at them and give me the sense of what these mean and what you see in them, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the first one here, and we're going to get an understanding of why you chose it. And it's not to say the others weren't good. It's just to say that there was something that you were looking for in particular for Cathedral Square that really lends to our faith and our Catholicism, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's go from there.
This piece is at Cathedral Square. It's painted by Mary Roosh, who was an Aquinas graduate as well. And I love this piece. It's called Emergence, and it's all about nature breaking through, emerging through man-made or human intervention, I guess you could say. So in this way, things that you would usually see on the ground, plants growing through a sidewalk, just really intrigued the artist, and I think it's a wonderful example of the power of nature and therefore the power of God breaking through. People are trying to put walls up or their own personal inhibitions, and it still will break through the cracks.
Father, how about you?
She says it very well. I mean, that's exactly what I was thinking, how the art flows from the natural, and it's a part of it. It's just so naturally, and I like that because it draws upon very familiar things again that we see in the world around us, and it makes a wonderful statement about life, about all kinds of natural things that we see in life.
That is beautiful. Let's see if we can take a look at another one here.
This is a piece by Sherry Erskine. She's a professor at Hope College. And this is a reference off of Carl Jung's philosophy of living of life. What I really like about this, it's the colors themselves are very subdued and calming. Birds are meant to represent the different elements of our life, different things that can coincide, different events. And then they're very abstracted, but you can tell that they are heart shapes.
Yes, I can.
But they're just so calmly, they're not in an aggressive state. They're not, it's just, I don't know, there's just something about it. It's hard to explain, really.
Got a wonderful element to it. Father, what do you see in this?
Well, I see it's very peaceful, very pleasant. It's like looking out your window and seeing birds gathering on branches and stuff, and just the quality of the materials is very impressive.
It really is stunning in its beauty on that. Very, very, and the birds are so beautiful in that. Okay, here's another piece we have here. Explain this one to us.
This is made by Sister Phyllis Mrozinski, and this is the 4th year she's shown with us. We've shown her every year that I've been here, and she is a wonderful sculptor, and she takes biblical verses and in a very subtle way explains it to a T. She really finds really great details to focus on. This piece is called A Stone Not Thrown, which is a very recognizable story, I think, about acknowledging sinners and punishing them, but it's really not up to us to do that.
When Jesus is talking about who would throw the first stone.
And I love this because she has the stones in the hand. And it's as if she's depicting the moment just before the decision is made or as the decision is being thought out. Do I put it down? Do I throw it? And, a lot of times people, you can go in one direction or another with any decision you make, how you want to, if you want to condone other people. And I think this is just a beautiful depiction of that story.
Father, you agree with that? Would you see that also?
Oh, I do. I know Sister Phyllis. She's a Grand Rapids Dominican. And has a long history in artwork and so on. She's studied abroad and so on. She's a great artist. I'm very drawn to the hands because I remember an artist once telling me that hands are one of the most difficult things to paint
Yes.
or to sculpt.
Yes.
And so she's done a marvelous job with that. But the rich symbolism
Yes.
that's in a
It is a
grasping
beautiful
the
understanding
stones.
too of when Christ says, "Who would throw the first stone?" And that
Yeah.
I can sense in that hesitation, and like I said, do what I do, not throw it. Yeah. Let's take a look at another one here, if we could.
This is a great piece
Okay.
by Helen Slider, and
Okay.
she's a professor at Aquinas College.
Okay.
And she collects, she calls it junk. People will give her lots of
One
leftovers.
person's junk is another person's treasure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And she creates these lovely assemblages. And in this case, she's making it in a reference of a home or apartment complex, kind of a condominium in a way. And I really love how she's giving things new life
Yes.
by reassembling them and making things symbolic and not in the reference of what the material actually is, but how you would see it in the context of a home or in the context of a church. Or
Yes.
she has a part that's called the church tower, and it's just made with really random objects, but you can definitely see where she's coming
It's
from.
beautiful,
with it.
and we're looking at another one here. This is a beautiful painting here.
Yes, this is Tony Hendricks' painting. My favorite thing about this painting is the intense layers of paint and the amazing colors
Yes,
that
it
he
is
gets
beautiful.
in
It
there.
is stunning. It is stunning. Let's take a look at one more, if we could.
Well, immediately you see a lot of color. It's very energetic, a lot of faceted planes, which is very interesting. It's on a two-dimensional surface, obviously, but you definitely get a very nice energy coming
Yes.
from it.
Actually, that's one of my most favorite pieces.
Is it?
Because it takes a familiar subject, which we've all seen painted by many artists and
Yes.
so forth, but it brings the artist's own sense of it, these wonderful colors that are in it. It's very vivacious, very lively, and it's a progressive kind of painting. He painted it over several periods and so
Yeah.
on. So I just really like the whole subject, the approach to it and everything. It's just a wonderful piece.
Okay, okay. That was the Ford Museum, okay. You know, we're looking at all of this, and it really draws you into the image of God. When you start to see all this, you see the beauty in nature, you see the beauty in art, you see it in photographs, we see it in sculptures. You know, Father, it always intrigues me when we look at these, how the church is so blended into the arts, how the church has really gravitated to the arts. Give us a little history of that. How was the church so ingrained into the arts?
Well, the church saw the arts as another means by which to share the gospel,
Okay.
our belief about God, our belief about Christ. It was a lot of people, you know, weren't educated in terms of reading, writing, and so on.
Of course.
So art told the stories, whether it was stained glass windows or books with pictures or art pieces in churches and monasteries and so on. The art told the story, invited people to reflect on that story. So art has always had a very positive role. And even today, I mean, persons like Pope John Paul II or Pope Benedict have talked about art and the role of art and written letters to artists that are well known, encouraging them to help us tell the story through art today.
And people are moved by art, aren't they? I mean, people really have an emotional experience in looking at something, particularly when you're looking at the art in Cathedral Square, when people are standing and really contemplating what it means. The same in the church. I'm drawn to many of even the stained glass windows that are telling a story in art. Because it's a profound history of who we are. So when you are looking at it and you're looking at art for perhaps putting into a church, what are you looking for that might lend itself?
Sometimes I look for how this art or this artist might capture something that conveys something of the mystery of the faith.
Okay.
You know, because we're talking about, you know, spiritual mysteries, spiritual truths,
Right.
and how can that be captured in art? And of course, we've seen over the hundreds of years how so many artists have done that.
Oh, yes.
I mean, you know, the museums of the world are filled with that art. The churches of the world are filled with that art. Where would people like Michelangelo and all these other people be if they hadn't been commissioned to do this work? And they did it wonderfully. And we kind of lost that for a while, and I think we're recapturing that in our own time.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful to see that.
Do you see people, Elizabeth, recapturing art in their lives? Do you see any sense of that? Particularly going back now with ArtPrize, I don't think we ever could have imagined that people would have gravitated to this type of venue as much as they have. I'm surprised on how people have responded to something like this, because there's something powerful in art that draws people in, something that I can't do. And you see it as a powerful gift of God to others who can, so that really inspires me when I see that.
A professor once told me that when you walk into a museum or a gallery and you see a piece of work and you're immediately drawn to it, that all the other pieces practically fall away, you're pulled like a magnet to this piece. Mm-hmm. You're a kindred spirit to that artist.
Is that right?
And I love that idea, that a person you don't know, you've never met, you may never speak to them.
Yes.
It could be centuries or hundreds of years old. And yet there's something about it that speaks to you, and it's at an inaudible level. It's just something visual, something that only can be expressed visually, but felt very deeply.
Well, that makes sense, because I think that's what I experience, is that I have an experience of looking at this piece of art, and I often wonder what the artist is about and what his thoughts are in this, and how that he would explain it to me as I look at it, because I'm having my own interpretation. But it's the same way with liturgical art, is it not, Father? I mean, we look at that in different ways too.
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of liturgical art, and people have had their favorites over the centuries.
Yes.
And, you know, art is religious art can be controversial. Some have painted pieces or designed pieces that you know, been controversial, but art has always been controversial. Or
downright offensive.
Or offensive,
Yeah.
but you know, it's always had that kind of evocative nature to it,
Yeah.
that it brings out all kinds of things in people.
Yes.
And I think that's good.
If I put you on the spot and I ask you, do you have a favorite piece of art that you can think of right now that you really enjoy? Or have you found to see one ArtPrize that you particularly liked?
Well, I mentioned that I really enjoyed the Last Supper painting for a number of reasons, but there were just so many pieces that I've looked at and have really enjoyed, and some pieces that, you know, aren't specifically religious.
Yes.
Religious in the sense, but just beautiful works of art on their own in terms of the how they're made, how they're what the artists tried to convey and put into it. The stories
Yes.
of these artists and their lives get woven into the whole art experiences. To me, that's inspiring.
It is, it is. I tell you, there was, I think it was 2 years ago that the top prize winner was the big crucifix of Christ with all the, was that the broken pieces of glass or the, now I have that as a screensaver on my phone because I found that so compelling to look at. It was just a beautiful piece, and that's the type that inspires me. And when you see that, because not only is it the picture I'm looking at, but the amount of work and the amount of labor and the amount of skill and the gift that God has given these artists is totally intriguing to me when you see that. So if you went and you were looking at the pieces for ArtPrize, I think, did you mention what was your favorite this year?
I will not say this year. The whole show is my favorite piece,
Yeah.
frankly. The works are all very different, but they all work together very nicely. And I think in a way it really reflects the community more than anything, that there are a lot of different things that people are good at, and we all work together to make a great community and a great exhibit.
How many as you're choosing, do you have a committee that helps you to choose that, or are you the last say in it?
Bishop Wakowiak overlooks
Okay,
everything,
okay.
but no, they do trust me to pick everything, which
That's
is
wonderful.
very, very helpful, very nice.
How long does it take you to go through all that?
Well, we had about a 2-month process of looking through all the artwork, and you know, you begin right away and you
Now, excuse me
work
for
to the last
interrupting, but when
minute.
you say looking through, are you just looking at photographs of them, or are you actually seeing the piece?
Both.
Okay.
I did about less than a dozen studio visits to see pieces in person, because it does make a big difference
does.
seeing something on a computer screen
Yes.
than seeing especially sculpture, scale is really thrown off with sculpture.
I would think so. I would think so. And Father, when a church is going to be either rebuilt or they're building a new church, who makes the selections on artwork in there when we're looking at that?
Well, most parishes have some kind of a building committee and different subcommittees, one of which is usually artworks for the building. And they will often ask for recommendations about local artists or other artists, and we'll pass on a lot of information to them and kind of encourage them to go and visit other artworks that this artist has created and do their homework, so to speak. And if there's something that really, you know, like you said, inspires somebody or grabs a hold of somebody's attention, you know, kind of pursue that, follow your natural instincts. And there's just a lot of very gifted, talented artists out there.
There are. You know, even in designing a church on the inside really becomes a work of art, does it not? And then there's certain guidelines that the church follows, is that correct? And when we're looking at a church and designing it, what are some of those I think we'd be looking at when they're designing that particular piece of art in a church?
Well, it's very wide open.
Okay.
I mean, you know, it should be something that has the ability to inspire people and their religious sentiments and so on, their faith, strengthen their faith and so on. But it's kind of wide open. I mean, we've run the gamut over the years of all different kinds of styles and so on, from very traditional styles, what we'd call traditional styles, but everything from kind of going back to older styles like iconography, you know, and so forth, to very modern forms today that we've seen, Matisse, and I mean, just so many different wonderful possibilities out there. Now, people can't afford a Matisse or something, but you know, there's Matisse-inspired types of artists, and so on.
Of course,
it's
that's
great
wonderful
to see that.
So, as ArtPrize is winding down, are you already gearing up for next year?
Maybe.
No. But I'm sure it's something you have to look at down the road.
Oh,
already.
absolutely. Yeah. For this past ArtPrize, we were planning for about 6 months prior, and so probably take a little break and then start up again after the new year.
Yeah, it is, because you know there's a tremendous amount of work in putting that together, and it's a tremendous amount of effort on everybody's part to bring it into the Cathedral Square, and then to oversee it. And when people are going through, is there someone there directing them through and explaining the artists? Any of the artists there at times?
Yeah, we do like to invite local artists to show with us, particularly for that reason. They can be a little more available. But we have had out-of-state artists who are in town, and so they'll stay with their piece, you know, for a week at a time, whatever they can afford to be away. But no, it's really just kind of meandering the gallery at your own pace. Most of the work has artist statements associated with it, so you can read and see the basic intention of what the artist was planning for the work. But I think it's really more important to see how the viewer is interpreting it. How is this influencing your life, or how are you interpreting it?
When you're looking at these pieces to choose for Cathedral Square, obviously you're looking at the piece of art itself. How important is it to have a conversation with the artist?
Oh, very important. I mean, to know the intentions behind the artist and know what they were feeling. You know, I don't want to say anyone's pandering for a certain type of votes, but it's something to be aware of, and just to know that the pure intentions and things like that, it's very valuable. And I think it really reflects the gallery as a whole to see it.
Father, did you have a chance to be in Cathedral Square to see the art there?
I haven't. My intent is still to get there, and I'm hoping maybe tomorrow. So.
It's beautiful to walk through there, as is with all the other areas in downtown Grand Rapids. And I know the venues are spread out. Isn't that correct? Is there some at Myers Garden and everything else today?
Yes, they're the only one outside of the 3-mile boundary of downtown, but for the most part, every other venue is within that boundary.
I meant to ask this question. How is it that we became a venue, Cathedral Square?
That's a good question. I believe Bishop Hurley, like I said before, he's a very big supporter for the arts, and I think they wanted take advantage of it as a great community event, that a lot of different people were coming in, and even selecting more secular art and inviting a wide variety of people and wanting everyone to feel comfortable in this environment, that we're not being exclusive to any particular group.
And Father, as a Catholic priest and me as a deacon, I find it wonderful that we invite everybody into this artwork, because everybody does have a talent in that respect we're bringing in. And so it really is an understanding of being ecumenical, is it not, in this type of art?
Well, it's a great experience of people's gifts and talents. You know, we talk about that all the time, of the stewardship of one's time, talents, treasures, gifts. That certainly is an experience of it. And to, you know, it's nice to have something where we all kind of can enjoy, and there's been a little bit of vandalism this year at a couple of venues, unfortunately, but it draws together so many people in a peaceful enterprise and an enjoyable enterprise. But I think that in itself is a great contribution.
It is.
And people find things that they like, and everyone can identify with something.
Exactly.
And that is just the big thing about
You know,
it.
and I don't think anybody could ever look at the Sistine Chapel of Michelangelo's work and see anything but beauty. And whether you're a Catholic or a Protestant or a non-believer, you still see the beauty of God's creation up in that ceiling.
Right, and the technique.
It is.
You know, of how he did that.
Yes. I want to thank you both for being here. It's been an interesting conversation, because art is really so important to us as human beings, and it brings us closer to God. So thank you for being here, Elizabeth. Father, I want to thank you for being here.
You're
It's
welcome.
been a pleasure. I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight, and as always, we give all praise to Jesus Christ, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.